Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into a topic that so many people have questions about but really struggle to get clear answers on, the luteal phase. We're going to break down exactly what it is, why it's so incredibly important for your overall health, and most importantly, what might be going on if your cycles feel just frustratingly short or unpredictable. Let's get right into it. So, let's start with a couple of quick questions. Do you ever experience that super annoying spotting between your periods? Or maybe you track your cycle, and you just have this gut feeling that it's shorter than it should be. If any of that is ringing a bell, you are absolutely in the right place. These are classic signs that could point to something going on with your luteal phase.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. What even is the luteal phase? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the second half of your menstrual cycle. It kicks off the day after you ovulate, and it runs all the way up until the day before your next period starts. It's a really crucial time, and its length can tell us a whole lot about our overall hormonal health.
To really understand what might be going wrong, we first need to know what right even looks like, So let's start by looking at the body's own internal clock and what a healthy, quote-unquote, normal luteal phase is supposed to be.
Here's a real quick look at the whole picture. So your cycle starts with the follicular phase. That's when an egg is developing. Then, boom, you have ovulation, when that mature egg is finally released. And that brings us to our main event, the luteal phase. This is when the follicle that just released the egg transforms into something called the corpus luteum. And finally, if a pregnancy doesn't happen, menstruation begins, and the whole cycle just resets itself. So, what actually determines how long this phase lasts? Well, it all comes down to the lifespan of that little guy, the corpus luteum. You can think of it like a temporary little gland whose main job is to produce that super important hormone, progesterone. And biologically, it's only designed to live for about 12 to 14 days. So, that window, that's our target for a healthy luteal phase.
Okay, so if the ideal is 12 to 14 days, what's officially considered too short? Well, clinically speaking, a short luteal phase is one that lasts 11 days or less. If you're tracking your cycle and you consistently see a luteal phase this short, that's a really clear signal from your body that something in the system might be a little bit off.
And this is where things get really interesting. For years, the whole conversation around a short luteal phase has been focused on one thing, but that might be missing the entire point. We are about to bust the great progesterone myth.
So the common assumption, what most of us hear, is that a short luteal phase is simply a low progesterone problem. And look, while low progesterone is definitely part of the story, it's the symptom, not the root cause. The medical reality, and this is the real aha moment here, is that it's almost always an ovulation problem. It's not a failure of the gland itself, but a failure in the whole process that created it in the first place.
You know, fertility specialist Dr. Natalie Crawford just puts it perfectly. She says that a luteal phase defect is, for the most part, not a failure of the ovary, it's most likely a failure of the ovulatory process. In other words, the problem actually started way earlier in the cycle. The foundation wasn't built correctly, so of course the second half is going to be a little shaky. Focusing only on progesterone is like trying to fix a leaky roof by just painting over the water stain on the ceiling. You're just addressing the evidence, not the source of the problem.
This also helps explain why just checking your progesterone isn't a simple fix at all. See, progesterone is released in pulses, and those pulses are driven by the brain. What this means is your levels can swing wildly throughout the day. I mean, they can go from 3 to 40 nanograms. A single blood test is just one snapshot in time. It's like looking at a single photo from an entire movie. It just can't tell you the whole story.
So, if it's an ovulation problem, what does that really mean? Well, it means we have to look upstream. We have to look at the communication system that controls the whole process. I want you to think of it like a delicate, constant dance, or a dialogue that's happening between your brain and your ovaries. Let's just follow this chain of command, okay? It all starts in the brain, in an area called the hypothalamus. It sends the first signal to the pituitary gland. The pituitary then responds by releasing these key hormones, FSH and LH. You can think of them as the get ready and go signals for the ovary. The ovary gets the message, it grows a follicle, and then it ovulates. It's only after all that happens that the corpus luteum can form and do its job of producing progesterone. A little hiccup anywhere along that chain is going to affect the final outcome.
So here is the crucial takeaway.
A short luteal phase is not just some minor inconvenience. You really should see it as a vital sign. In fact, it's often the very first clinical sign that the entire system of ovulation is under some kind of stress or experiencing dysfunction. It's your body's early warning system.
So if this is such a delicate dance, what can cut in and mess up the rhythm? What kind of outside interference can throw off that really important brain-ovary dialogue?
So, when a doctor starts investigating a short luteal phase, they'll usually look for a few common culprits first. These are all conditions that are known to interfere with that hormonal communication. They'll check for things like high prolactin levels, any thyroid abnormalities, and conditions related to egg health, like PCOS or diminished ovarian reserve. But what is the single most common cause of all of this? It's something called hypothalamic dysfunction. And this takes us right back to the top of that chain of command we talked about, the part of the brain that kicks off the entire conversation. It's all about how your brain is perceiving the world and the amount of stress it thinks it's under.
And what stresses out the hypothalamus? Well, it can be a lot of things that we all experience in modern life. High emotional stress, really intense exercise, not eating enough calories to support your body, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, or even just consistently bad sleep. All of these things send a signal to the brain that basically says, hey, this might not be a safe or stable time to support a pregnancy, and so it can subtly dial down those hormonal signals as a protective measure.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get to the most important part. What can you actually do about it? Let's shift our focus to an empowered, actionable plan that you can use to start getting some answers. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, and you suspect you might have a short luteal phase, the next question is pretty obvious. What do you do now? Where do you even begin? Here is your action plan. First, and this is absolutely critical, start tracking your ovulation as accurately as you can. Please don't just rely on a calendar app, which is often just guessing. Use methods like basal body temperature charting or ovulation predictor kits. Second, take all that data you've collected to your doctor. It is such powerful evidence. And from there, they can order the right evaluations, like blood work and an ultrasound, to investigate what's really going on. And hey, while you're pursuing those medical answers, there's so much you can do to support that brain-ovary connection yourself. You can do this by focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet, making sleep a non-negotiable priority, finding healthy ways to manage your chronic stress, and building skeletal muscle, which is fantastic for fighting off insulin resistance. All of these actions help reduce those stress signals that are reaching your brain.
So let's end on this thought. Your cycle isn't just something you have to manage every month. It is a vital sign. It's just like your blood pressure or your heart rate. It is giving you incredible insight into your overall health. So the most powerful question you can ask isn't just, is my cycle normal, but what is my body trying to tell me? Thank you so much for joining us.